bang stuff now. Rodman is all over Bird.
And there is a violent knockdown by Lambert. Oh my! A completely unnecessary foul by Lambert, and he has the audacity to complain about something. They have been called a dirty ball club, and I can see why. This is a typical disgusting display by Rodman, Lambert, and Isaiah Thomas. The yellow, gutless way they do things.
They were called dirty, ruthless, and vicious. Their own league despised them. Their opponents feared them. The Detroit Pistons weren't just willing to be the NBA's villains. They embraced it. This is the story of a team that turned a struggling franchise in a troubled city into champions by breaking not just the rules of basketball, but rewriting them entirely. Welcome to the Bad Boys era, the NBA's most notorious dynasty. The Dark Days, 1980 to 1981.
Air ball and Archibald comes down. There might have been a defensive hand on that. Right down the middle comes Tiny. Dishes to Berry. On a rolling hook right side, won't go. Rick was watching Tiny. He thought he was going to go all the way that time. Here comes Bing. McAdoo.
Back in 1980, the Detroit Pistons were a mess. They lost 66 games, making them the worst team in the NBA. The next year wasn't any better. They lost 60 more games. Nobody came to watch them play. Their huge stadium, the Silverdome, could hold 82,000 people, but only about 5,000 fans would show up. The worst part? Nobody wanted to play in Detroit. The city was struggling with crime and economic hardship, so players avoided it like the plague. Detroit needed something to believe in, but the Pistons didn't give them much hope. The franchise seemed stuck in a downward spiral with no end in sight. The turning point. Isaiah Thomas arrives at Pistons. Everything started to change in the 1981 draft. The Pistons had the second pick, and they wanted Isaiah Thomas, a star point guard who had just won a college championship with Indiana University under the great Bobby Knight. But there was a problem. Isaiah didn't want to come to Detroit. He wanted to play for his hometown Chicago Bulls. During his interview with the Pistons, he purposely gave wrong answers, trying to make them not draft him. He was doing everything in his power to sabotage his chances of landing in Detroit. Jack McCloskey, the Pistons' general manager, saw through Isaiah's act. McCloskey became the Pistons' manager in 1979, and his ability to judge talent would soon transform the franchise. The Dallas Mavericks, who had the first pick, didn't select Thomas, and the Pistons pounced. McCloskey was right about his new star. Building the Bad Boys, 1982 to 1986. During a game against Cleveland, McCloskey noticed something special. A Cavalier center named Bill Laimbeer was playing super hard, even though his team was losing badly. He was competing until the final buzzer despite being 20 points down. In November 1981, the Pistons also acquired Vinnie Johnson in a trade with the Seattle Supersonics. He would later earn the nickname the Microwave for his ability to heat up quickly off the bench and score in bunches. Thomas and Laimbeer quickly became the heart and soul of the Pistons. Both made the All-Star team in 1983, their first full season together. But despite their individual success, the team still missed the playoffs for the sixth year in a row. McCloskey then made another smart move. He fired Scotty Robertson and hired Chuck Daly as head coach in 1983. Under Daly, the Pistons instantly improved. In 1984, they had the best offense in the NBA and drew 16,000 fans per game, a huge improvement. Most importantly, they had their first winning season in years and made the playoffs. Though they lost in the first round to the New York Knicks, who were powered by Bernard King's incredible 42-point average across the 5-game series, the foundation was being built. In 1985, they went one step further, finally winning their first playoff series after 9 years. They faced the defending champion Boston Celtics in the conference semifinals. Though Boston prevailed in 6 games, Detroit's surprising performance promised that a rivalry had begun. McCloskey kept building the team. He drafted shooting guard Joe DeMars with the 18th pick in the 1985 NBA draft, a selection that proved to be very wise. The next day, he traded for Rick Mahorn, a master screen setter and one of the toughest players in the NBA. Mahorn's intensity level was off the charts. He often said he wanted to kill opponents and keep killing them with his physical play. Despite these additions, the 1986 season brought disappointment with a first-round playoff exit at the hands of the more athletic Atlanta Hawks. But instead of making drastic changes in personnel or firing the coach, Jack kept faith in Daly and the core of his team, believing they just needed a bit more help. Before the 1986-87 season, help arrived when the Pistons drafted two extremely important pieces: John Salley 11th overall and Dennis Rodman 27th overall. Rodman's story was particularly remarkable. At 25 years old, he had a troubled past and had been working as an airport janitor just a few years before becoming an NBA player. The Pistons took a chance on him because of his incredible energy, which perfectly suited the hard-nosed fighting spirit developing in Detroit. McCloskey then traded for Adrian Dantley, a former two-time scoring champion, and the Pistons finally became a true contender. The Bad Boys take shape, 1987 to 1988. Under Daly's direction, the Pistons adopted a philosophy of 94 feet of defense. The idea was that the team would defend everywhere on the court, making it incredibly difficult for opponents to set up their offense. Up until that time, most NBA teams ran back on defense and allowed the offensive team to cross half court unbothered. It was basically a gentleman's agreement. But the Pistons didn't care about gentlemanly conduct. Their whole strategy was to pressure, bump, and agitate opponents, unlike any other team ever had. They quickly became the most disliked team in the NBA. They didn't just want to dominate opponents physically, they wanted to crush them mentally. They wanted to strike fear into the hearts of opposing fans because they were getting ready to destroy their team. While Detroit didn't lead the NBA in technical fouls and was ranked 15th out of 23 teams in total fouls, meaning they fouled less than average, they definitely excelled in hip checks, forearms to the ribs, cheap shots to the groin, shoving players mid-air, and fouls after the whistle. Bill Laimbeer became the most hated player in the league. He would often step under players when they jumped, trying to make them land on his foot and get hurt. When confronted, he'd just shrug it off. After all, he didn't twist his ankle. This dirty play style made him arguably the most hated player in NBA history. But their plan was working. Detroit won a franchise record 54 games, and they averaged 25,000 people in the stands, which again led the NBA. Thanks to 94-foot pressure and more minutes for Rodman, they had the second-best defense in the league. The story of the game was Detroit's defense. It was what defined them now. In the late 1980s, the Celtics had made the finals 4 years in a row at that point, and, despite their core getting older, were still the favorites against Detroit. Before games in Boston, knowing how much they hated him, Laimbeer would be the first Piston to go out on the floor. But this time, the Celtics could do nothing to punish those provocations. The Pistons finally managed to beat Boston in 6 games, and the Pistons were on their way to the NBA Finals for the first time since the franchise moved to Detroit. Heartbreak in the Finals, 1988.
Got a steal. They're not going to get a chance. Green will win it. The game ends. The Lakers have won it again.
In their first NBA Finals in 32 years, the Pistons faced the Los Angeles Lakers, another 80s dynasty led by Magic Johnson, James Worthy, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Against the Vegas odds, Detroit took a 3-2 series lead. In Game 6, disaster struck when Isaiah Thomas badly sprained his ankle by stepping on Michael Cooper's foot. It looked like his season was over. Thomas started to get up, then went down onto the floor again in pain. But in one of the most incredible performances in NBA history, Thomas kept playing despite being unable to stand on one leg. He scored an amazing 25 points in the third quarter alone, a finals record, and finished with 43 points and 8 assists. He kept the Pistons afloat the entire game, and with half a minute to go, Detroit was up by 1 point. In the deciding Game 7, the Pistons again had a chance to win, but Dennis Rodman stupidly ruined a fast break in the final minute that would have cut the Lakers' lead to 1 point. The Pistons ended up losing the championship once again. Embracing the Bad Boys identity, 1989. After the NBA Finals, the league's video department issued VHS highlights for each team, as they did every year. Someone in the NBA named the 1988 Pistons tape the Bad Boys. When Isaiah Thomas heard about the title, he wasn't offended. He just gave reporters his trademark smirk. Soon enough, the whole team embraced this nickname because now they had an excuse for their brand of basketball. They did everything they could to live up to their name. Even the franchise started selling Bad Boys merchandise. If you thought the Pistons were dirty and physical before 1988, they were even worse in 1989. But again, this style of basketball worked wonders. The 1989 Pistons completed the building of their roster by trading Adrian Dantley for Mark Aguirre, a trade that Pistons fans initially criticized heavily, but later praised. The Pistons won a franchise record 63 games in the regular season, shattering their one-year-old franchise record, and were eager to kick everybody's butt in the playoffs. First, they swept the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks in the first two rounds. Then came Michael Jordan and his Bulls in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Jordan Rules, 1989. Because Jordan was by far the best player in the NBA, Chuck Daly knew that if the Pistons wanted to win, they had to put all their effort into stopping MJ. So, Daly invented the Jordan Rules, specific ways to stop Jordan by any means necessary. When Jordan had the ball at the top of the key, they forced him left and double-teamed him. If he was on the left wing, they immediately double-teamed him from the top. When he made it to the paint, they doubled him with a big man. And the most important rule, anytime he went past a defender, that player had to nail him hard. The Pistons didn't want to be dirty, though some people thought they were, but they had to make contact and be very physical. The message was clear. If you couldn't beat Jordan with basketball skill alone, you beat him physically. By the end of the series, Jordan had more bruises than ever and couldn't match the Pistons' cumulative aggressiveness. Detroit won the series in 6 games and secured another finals clash with the Lakers. Champions at last, 1989 to 1990.
3-2 lead. They couldn't win one of the last two. Now they'll do it. World champs.
In the 1989 finals, luck finally shined for Detroit. After Byron Scott got injured in Game 1, the Lakers also lost Magic Johnson to injury in Game 3. With these key players out, and Kareem being 41 years old, the Lakers didn't stand a chance. The Pistons swept them in the finals, and for the first time became NBA champions. In 1990, due to the expansion draft, the Pistons couldn't keep Rick Mahorn. That only meant more minutes for Rodman, who won his first Defensive Player of the Year award. The Pistons again topped the Eastern Conference with 59 wins. In the playoffs, they dispatched their first 2 opponents before facing the Bulls in the Eastern Conference Finals for the 3rd straight season. Facing each other for the 3rd straight season, the Pistons and Bulls split the first 6 games before the Pistons finished the series with a decisive 93-74 victory in Game 7. In the finals, they played the Portland Trail Blazers and took the series to Portland, where the Pistons hadn't won a game since 1974. The end of an era, 1991 to 1994. The almost unchanged team entered the 1991 season with the sole aim of winning a 3rd consecutive title. They won 50 games in the regular season, a slight drop-off from previous years, but still managed to reach the Eastern Conference Finals for the 4th straight year, once again facing the Bulls. But this time, Jordan and the Bulls were ready for the Pistons' aggression and cheap fouls. They were younger, hungrier, and better, sweeping Detroit 4-0 and announcing the start of their own dynasty. Before the final game was over, Isaiah Thomas and the Pistons left the bench and walked past the Bulls in silence, not shaking the winners' hands. Their walk-off was considered gangster in the state of Michigan, but was universally hated everywhere else. It was also symbolic because it marked the beginning of the end of the Bad Boys. It was later revealed that the real reason the Pistons walked off the court without shaking hands with the Bulls was due to comments made by Jordan in a pre-game interview before Game 4, where he said, "The Pistons are undeserving champions. The Bad Boys are bad for basketball." After getting swept by the Bulls, the Pistons traded James Edwards and waived Vinnie Johnson during the offseason. In the 1991-92 season, They finished with a 48-34 record. In the first round of the 1992 NBA playoffs, they were defeated by the New York Knicks in 5 games. Chuck Daly resigned as head coach after the season. Following Daly's departure, the Pistons went through a transitional period, as key players were either traded, Sally and Rodman, or retired, Laimbeer in 1993 and Thomas in 1994. They bottomed out in the 1993-94 season, finishing with a 20-62 record. Just like that, the Bad Boys era was over. The 2004 Pistons. After the Bad Boys era ended, the Pistons went through some tough years. But by the early 2000s, a new team was forming, one that would bring championship glory back to Detroit. Joe Dumars, the quiet shooting guard from the Bad Boys, was now the team's general manager. The 2004 Pistons didn't have superstars. Instead, they had Chauncey Billups, a steady point guard nicknamed Mr. Big Shot, Richard "Rip" Hamilton, a tireless scoring machine who constantly moved without the ball and utilized screens to create mid-range scoring opportunities. Tayshaun Prince, a small forward with extraordinary length, emerged as a defensive specialist capable of guarding multiple positions. Rasheed Wallace, a versatile offensive player, was acquired mid-season and provided an elite defensive presence. And Ben Wallace, who was an undersized but intimidating defensive center that established himself as one of the most intimidating defensive centers in NBA history, despite standing just 6 feet 9 inches. This starting five developed extraordinary chemistry, understanding each other's tendencies and movements to the point where they could anticipate plays before they developed. They prioritized team success over individual achievements, creating a culture where defensive stops were celebrated as enthusiastically as spectacular offensive plays. Under coach Larry Brown, this team led the league in defense, allowing just 85.1 points per game. After Rasheed Wallace joined mid-season, they got even better, allowing an amazing 76.4 points per game. In the 2004 playoffs, they beat the Milwaukee Bucks and New Jersey Nets before facing the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. After a tough 6-game series, they advanced to the NBA Finals against the heavily favored Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers had 4 future Hall of Famers: Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Gary Payton, and Karl Malone. The Lakers entered as heavy favorites, expecting to claim their 4th championship in 5 years. Everyone expected Los Angeles to win easily. Instead, the Pistons shocked the basketball world. Their defensive game plan stifled the Lakers' star-studded lineup, holding them to just an average of 81.8 points per game on 41.2% shooting throughout the series, well below their regular season averages. In Game 3, they held the potent Lakers offense to a franchise playoff-low 68 points, symbolizing their defensive dominance. The Pistons' defensive strategy limited Kobe Bryant to just 38% shooting, while completely neutralizing the Lakers' supporting cast. Outside of Shaquille O'Neal, 26 points per game, and Bryant, 22 points, no Lakers player averaged more than 7 points in the series. They won the series in 5 games, with some describing it as a 5-game sweep, since their 4 victories were all convincing, while the Lakers barely managed to win Game 2 in overtime. Chauncey Billups won the Finals MVP. Original Bad Boys versus 2004 champions. While both teams brought championships to Detroit, they did it in very different ways. The Bad Boys made their mark with dirty plays and intimidation tactics, rallying behind Isaiah Thomas as their superstar leader. They were masters of trash-talking and mind games, constantly pushing the rules to their limits while maintaining a surprisingly balanced offensive attack. In contrast, the 2004 Pistons built their identity on technical defensive excellence. They had no true superstar, instead relying on 5 excellent starters who worked in perfect harmony. Their approach featured quiet professionalism rather than trash talk, and they generally played within the rules rather than trying to bend them. Their scoring was even more balanced than the Bad Boys, with different players stepping up on different nights. What made the 2004 Pistons truly special was their exceptional chemistry. Unlike the Lakers, who battled internal friction between stars O'Neal and Bryant, the Pistons remained unified with a singular focus on winning through collective effort. They employed an 11-man rotation where every player understood and embraced their role, prioritizing team success over individual statistics. The Malice at the Palace, a dark chapter. After winning the 2004 championship, the Pistons remained a top team in the East. But on November 19, 2004, something happened that would forever change the NBA. During a game against the Indiana Pacers at the Palace of Auburn Hills, a massive fight broke out. With 45.9 seconds left in the game, Pistons center Ben Wallace was fouled hard from behind by Pacers forward Ron Artest. Wallace, angry about the foul, shoved Artest in the face with both hands. As referees tried to separate the players, Artest lay down on the scorer's table to remove himself from the situation. That's when a fan named John Green threw a cup of Diet Coke at Artest, hitting him in the chest. Artest immediately charged into the stands, grabbing a fan he thought had thrown the drink. Pacers teammate Steven Jackson followed, punching another fan in the face after another drink was thrown. Multiple Pacers players entered the stands while Pistons players and personnel attempted to restore order. When Artest returned to the court, he was confronted by two fans who had come down from the stands. He punched one of them, and other Pacers players joined in the fighting. The intensity of the situation was captured by Pacers coach Rick Carlisle, who stated he felt like he was fighting for his life out there, while assistant coach Chuck Person compared it to being trapped in a gladiator-type scene where the fans were the lions, and they were just trying to escape with their lives. The incident, which became known as the Malice at the Palace, resulted in 9 players being suspended for a total of 146 games, resulting in $11 million in lost salary. Artest received the harshest punishment, suspension for the remaining 73 games of the season, the longest non-drug or betting-related suspension in NBA history. The lean years, 2008 to 2023. After the championship core aged, the Pistons entered a long period of struggle. While the Pistons remained competitive, advancing to 4 straight Eastern Conference Finals after the brawl and 6 straight overall, they couldn't recapture their championship form. Between 2009 and 2023, they made the playoffs just twice and were quickly eliminated both times. They cycled through coaches and players, trying different rebuilding strategies, but nothing seemed to work. In the 2023-24 season, they hit rock bottom, finishing with a dismal 14-68 record, the worst in the league. Their offensive rating of 109, 27th in the league, and defensive rating of 118, 25th, showed they were struggling on both ends of the floor. Detroit became a team that other players didn't want to join, similar to the pre-Isaiah Thomas days of the early 1980s. The franchise that had brought the Bad Boys and the 2004 champions seemed lost. The 2024-25 Pistons. After hitting rock bottom, the Pistons made big changes. They hired experienced head coach J.B. Bickerstaff, who previously helped develop young talent in Cleveland, and revamped their roster. The centerpiece of their rebuild is Cade Cunningham, their young star point guard who has emerged as an all-star in the 2024-25 season. The front office's $224 million extension now appears to be a wise investment rather than the questionable gamble some considered last year. Through 59 games, Cunningham has averaged an impressive 25.6 points, 6.1 rebounds, and 9.3 assists per game, while shooting a career-best 46.2% from the field and 36.0% from three-point territory. His playmaking reached elite levels, with his assist-to-turnover ratio improving to 2.1 despite handling increased offensive responsibilities. Perhaps most impressively, Cunningham has accumulated 27 double-doubles and 8 triple-doubles, demonstrating his multifaceted impact on games. His improved decision-making in clutch situations transformed close losses from previous seasons into victories. The front office undertook a substantial roster renovation during the offseason, adding veterans who could provide both on-court production and leadership. Tobias Harris returned to Detroit, bringing scoring versatility and professionalism. Sharpshooters Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley were acquired to address the team's woeful three-point shooting. Meanwhile, Paul Reed had the front court rotation with defensive energy and rebounding. Second-year guard Jaden Ivey developed chemistry with Cunningham in the backcourt, learning to maximize his explosive athleticism within the structure of Bickerstaff's system. Their partnership, initially questioned by some analysts due to potential ball dominance issues, has instead blossomed into one of the league's most dynamic young guard combinations. The results have been encouraging. Through Cunningham's games, the team has posted a 33-26 record, a remarkable turnaround from the previous season's 14-68 disaster. They're now in the playoff conversation rather than hoping for another high draft pick. Bad Boys versus 2024-25 Pistons. The current Pistons are very different from the Bad Boys in almost every way. Where the Bad Boys prioritized defense with physical intimidation, today's team is more offense-oriented, emphasizing three-point shooting and spacing. The Bad Boys were built around Isaiah Thomas's leadership and will to win, while the 2024-25 squad centers on Cade Cunningham's versatile all-around skills. The personnel differences are striking too. The Bad Boys were known for bruising big men like Laimbeer and Mayhorn, who punished opponents in the paint. Today's Pistons feature athletic wings and guards who can shoot from a distance and drive to the basket. The pace has changed dramatically as well. The Bad Boys mastered half-court, slow-paced basketball, and would often grind games to a halt with their physical play. The current Pistons play at a much faster tempo, pushing the ball in transition whenever possible. The biggest difference is in the style of play. The Bad Boys averaged 109.3 points per game in 1990, with defense as their calling card. Today's Pistons play in an era where three-pointers dominate. 35% of shots in 2025 compared to just 9% in 1990. The legacy of the Bad Boys. Despite the changes in basketball over the decades, the Bad Boys remain the most iconic team in Pistons history. They revolutionized NBA defense and created a team identity that's still associated with Detroit basketball even now, 35 years later. Their physical, in-your-face style forced the league to adapt and eventually change rules to open the game for more scoring. The infamous Jordan rules didn't just frustrate Michael Jordan temporarily, they ultimately made him and the Bulls better. Jordan had to get stronger, more determined, and more creative to overcome the punishment Detroit dealt him. The Pistons didn't have the most talented players on paper, but they played as a united force with a perfect understanding of their roles. The Bad Boys created a blueprint for championship teams built on defense and toughness. This blueprint influenced the 2004 Pistons, who followed it in their own way, with less aggression but the same commitment to team defense and balanced offense. I'll be ending the video with a very famous quote from the 90s. This was the Bad Boys. There can only be one Bad Boy basketball team, and this was it, and there'll never be another one.